Hey everybody, I think we're going to get things rolling here. I'm Jerome Rankin. I'm the editorial director at Pollen. Pardon my dancing earlier if you weren't paying attention. Might still dance a little bit if the music keeps going. It is just so energizing and uplifting to see all your faces. Last night I was talking to my 9-year-old daughter who's sort of suffering from her own bouts of worry. Just talking through the fact that it's challenging for just about everyone right now in about a million different ways. But there's no small comfort in knowing that we're all going through this together. And gatherings like this are a really great reminder of that. So to that end, I really recommend keeping your camera on if you can and turn on that grid view and let the wall of faces just wash over you. I love it. You'll love it. It's great. For those of you who might not know much about Pollen and what we do, we're a media arts nonprofit dedicated to fostering empathy, encouraging human connection, and inspiring meaningful action. We do that through narrative storytelling and bringing people together, like today. So this is, as we all know, a really unprecedented time, unprecedented public health crisis, economic disruption, physical isolation. It's been hard for everybody. And as this crisis has taken over our lives in so many ways, Pollen's team, we regularly gather virtually to check in with each other, ask how we're doing, how we're holding up. There's crying, there's laughing, and we ask ourselves a lot, what is Pollen's role during this time? And we decided essentially that we wanted to keep doing what we do best, and that's creating space for people to process the complex issues facing our community, elevating voices that go unheard too often, and then holding our shared humanity at the center of everything. So to that, we've halted all of our regularly scheduled programming, basically from now to the end of the year, to fully pivot and bring content and gatherings focused on responsive issues connected to this crisis. So every Thursday at 2 p.m., we host these virtual gatherings to hear from guest speakers about their personal experience with the COVID-19 crisis, how they're dealing with increased isolation, how they're making ends meet at a time of economic uncertainty, and how they're helping to build a community of care even as we're kept apart. This is all part of the Are You OK initiative, a collection of stories, art, and connection during these extraordinary times. It's our small way of being able to directly funnel much needed financial resources to speakers, performers, writers, and artists right now when they need it. So this wouldn't be possible without some great partners we have in this. I want to thank the University of Minnesota for their partnership in hosting the technology for today's gathering. I want to thank sponsors of US Bank Foundation, Bush Foundation, Team Dynamics, Ide Bailey, and Clifton Larson Allen, who have helped us make this all possible, this gathering and all of our work through the Are You OK program. So let's get rolling here. I want to start by introducing our first artist that we're going to be featuring today. It's Eyenga Bokamba. She's a visual artist and designer based in Minneapolis, whose work advances our collective consciousness about what it means to be alive, thriving, and empathetic in today's world. She's a Bush Leadership Fellow who's had solo shows both here in the US and in Italy. Eyenga's work is currently on view at the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport. If you're not fortunate enough to get to avoid travel and you have to go to the airport, at least you can check out that work. She's been kind enough to offer today to take us on a tour of our studio and to talk to us about her creative process. So thank you for joining us. Oh, I think you might be muted. We can't hear you.
Hey, hey.
There we go. Welcome.
Hey, that's beautiful. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for that beautiful introduction. I'm super happy to be here in my studio and share it with you. So I'm feeling a little bit like Mr. Rogers. So maybe, and I already changed my sweater and my shoes and stuff. And so let's just, how about a tour? Is everybody game for a tour? Let's do that. How about that? I'm going to switch the camera view. We're going to start with what it all starts with, which is a little bit of color. My thing is, how do we create these multiple layers? I'm super excited to share this process with you and just give you a little tour. So this is my workspace. It's in the California building. I'm going to walk you over to where the paintings are born, created, dreamt up. This is the little nook. Looks out over California Street. And this is ideation corner. And this is the most important place in probably the whole studio. and it gives birth to images, layers, colors. I'm just showing you, I'm panning up to a photo. This is actually a print of a piece from the series, What Will I Do with All This Freedom? And I started asking this question relative to being an artist. 2018, the world felt like it was kind of going to hell, and I needed to like reframe the conversation and just be like, okay, so what am I going to do? What am I going to do with my privilege, with my freedom, with my time, et cetera? So I just wanted to show you that little piece and then kind of pan over to storage. All you artists out there, raise your hands for a love of storage. That means that pieces have gone places and they're coming back. I got 2 hand raises. I got 3. This is great. You know what? Storage is key, okay? It's very sexy. Okay, so there's storage. But here's the current work, and I put some of this on my Instagram and been kind of sharing it out. But again, for me, I'm really consumed with layers of translucence. I'm really concerned with trying to create sort of complex moments and sharing those out with the world. This series is called, part of a series called Origin Stories. And I wanted to work on it just to kind of lean into this idea that, you know, from our families of origin, there are just all these stories that are told about us that may or may not be true. So like, I'm just interested in exploring that. I'm interested in confronting that. I'm interested in leaning into the pain of some of those lies that have shaped some of our lives. This is the first one in the series, and I'll just show you probably one of my favorite moments. Let's go right there. Let's see a raise of hands if you can see that, if you like that, if you want to stay in that blue a little bit. And the solace for me in these times is leaning into this complexity and just asking the color to kind of reflect back to me, okay, so how is this moment going to transform me? How can I go deeper? How can I ask more questions? How can I share my work more? So I'm interested in getting that out there. And I'm interested in that question and staying in that question. So I just wanted to kind of stay with this piece for a minute to show y'all. And then there's a moment in the piece. Actually, I'm going to walk back to the first piece I showed you. There's more of my studio. I'll just give you a little pan around the studio here. So this moment, way down here in this painting, this little tiny moment down here, became its own painting. So I'm going to just circle back over and show you what that became. I created this 2 days ago, still working on it, deepening some color. I feel like I'm kind of getting there, especially interested in kind of some of those greens and blues. But again, it's sort of like asking myself, how can I lean in to this moment deeper and deeper and deeper into the creative process, the iterative process that's my birthright. And that's what I'm trying to, I guess, just do to save myself right in this moment, save my psyche, really. I just want to ask the folks out there, how much more blue do you need? Should we shift over to pinks? We still need some blues. I'll give you a little walk around the studio some more. Here's a piece, it's a huge piece. This is, I See, I Feel, Somehow I Know. I created this in 2012. And it just is all about intuition. So I'm just gonna say, hey guys, thanks so much for the opportunity to be with you, to talk, to share. And I'm happy, I'm super happy to answer any questions or kind of do whatever you need. I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Thank you so much for the tour. I hope when you get a chance, you can take a look at the chat at everyone totally flipping out about how awesome your studio is. Just let that stuff soak in. It's amazing, amazing stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn the conversation over now to Pollen's Art and Talent Director, Monica Nadal, who is going to introduce our next guest speakers. Monica.
Hi. Hola a todos. Buenas tardes. My name is Monica Nadal, and I am the Art and Talent Director at Pollen. I just have to say before I dive in, Eyenga, your studio is incredible. Like Jerome said, we've just been gushing all over it, and it's incredible to just get a little sneak peek into your process, talking about color and this question of how can I lean in into this moment and create, has been a question that's been on my mind personally as an artist, as I do my own art at Pollen, but at the same time my personal work, and I've been able to find some inspiration through that. So I just want to take a moment and say thank you all for being here today. We're all coming to this conversation from different backgrounds, from different communities and experiences. But I just want to highlight that most importantly, we are here because we share a few things in common at this moment. Is, like Jerome said earlier, we're going through this together. And we're also here because we want to check in on each other and see how we're doing. I'm very honored to be interviewing these three incredible humans today that are going to be forming part of our conversation. At Pollen, we've had the privilege to work with each and every one of them who you'll be hearing from in some way or another. And I'm excited for you all to get to know them a little bit more. So before I dive in and present our first speaker, I just want to say that today's conversation is very near and dear to my heart because being the art and talent director at Pollen, and along with my colleagues, we work with a lot of freelancers on a day-to-day basis at Pollen, and we firmly believe that freelancers are the heartbeat of our work. Just because depending on the project that we're working with, we have the opportunity and privilege to work with various artists from different backgrounds and skill sets to actually help bring our work to life. And I think it's important, and just want to highlight that even though we're going through this time, it's so important that we support the arts and that we keep our friends and artists close together, just because without them, without our freelancers, we wouldn't be here today, and seeing the work that they're producing is incredible. So just to keep and let you all know that freelancers at Pollen are just so crucial, and they make up a big part of our social fabric. And with that being said, I'm very excited to present the bio of our first speaker today. I'll be sharing the stage here with Sarah White. Sarah White is a Minneapolis-based mother of two loving hearts, soul sweetener and space holder, using everything from soundscapes to hands-on healing arts as a tool for liberation. Working deeply for a decade on the exploration of different ways to get into the nervous systems and spirit body systems, Sarah White's studies dive deep into trauma and the belief we all can heal and find pleasure. Music, photography, healing trauma, farming while Black, holistic mothering, embodied sensuality, and vulnerability are Sarah's weapons of choice. Welcome, Sarah.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm just very excited, and I just want to make a note too that yesterday we published your piece on Pollen's website. Sarah wrote an incredible piece for us, and if you all have time later, please check it out. It's very grounding and powerful. And Sarah, I'll just start us off with our first question that ties into the topic of our conversation. Are you okay?
Oh, that's so huge, right?
It is.
Lately, I guess I've been taking it more moment to moment. Just the waves of the ups and downs, if you even try to whittle that down to like being okay or not okay, sometimes can feel paralyzing. As someone who studies a lot of body systems and understands why I'm reacting a certain way, but I still can't control it, and watching us as a collective have to learn right now what a new life will look like for those of us who stay strong and are here for it. It's pretty overwhelming. So I would say that I'm here right now.
Yeah.
Okay or not okay, I don't know.
I love that. I love the grounding piece of just knowing that we are in this moment, we are here, and we're here together. A question that I have for you, coming from that, I would love to hear from you as far as like, what needs are you seeing in the community, specifically the artist and healer communities, that we should all be aware of those needs?
A lot of things. I'll say I can speak for myself. Within 4 days, I lost all of my contracts, all of my work, and all of my ability to make money because I work with people. And so every gig, every contract that was moving forward, and I hold people for a living. So that was knocked out. And I'm seeing that mirrored in all of my friendships and communities. Most of us that don't have a savings account or a grant or family to lean on are just literally trying to work together to create our own web, because it's pretty clear that systemically we're not going to be taken care of, and we never have, you know. I feel like consumption of art during this time is so tasty, and it heals you and it grounds you, but like understanding that we're like human beings and it's our spirits, and to even focus and be here is pretty hard if you don't know how you're going to pay your rent and you don't know how you're going to feed your kids, and the damage that that does to all of our nervous systems, like everyone's nervous system right now, to process what's happening. That's later on, that's like post-traumatic stress that we're going to have to sit with, because this is not normal. This is not something that is easy to digest. And I won't get all heady about it, but I will say that there's something that happens called structural disassociation, and it happens when you're young. And as things happen that are like scary or maybe like even threatening your life, you're able to push it aside somewhere so then you can go forward. And I see a lot of people in my community having to just move forward in some way, but needing space to just process. Especially as artists, it's like moving all through every part of you, and that grief is significant. And yeah, there needs to be space to hold that.
I love that.
Long answer.
No, it's wonderful, and thank you for sharing. There's just like a few nuggets that I take away from what you've shared, and I think as artists, you know, putting your work out there, you're sharing a part of you, an experience of you, and then coming back and reflecting in that space is very important and crucial. So thank you for sharing with us. Another question that I have for you is regarding what we're living in this moment, as far as, has this crisis stirred in you a drive to change or dismantle any particular systems or inequities? You talked a little bit about it, but would love to hear more this time.
I mean, anyone who knows me knows I was already trying to dismantle every system.
Yes.
So for me, it's not, I'm more ironically inspired by the fact that other people are uncomfortable enough to start having these conversations. I've been seeing some really beautiful organizing with farmers. I'm right now compiling seeds to give to families of color that want to start growing food. Like right now is the time to grow food if you have a yard, if you have space, because the farmers are struggling right now. Like all this food you think that's gonna like show up in the co-op once this is over is not necessarily gonna be the way it is. And we all right now are indoors and could start planting seeds. So I'm thinking about the food systems. I'm also thinking about the grant systems and the way some of these mutual aid systems are set up. I'm someone who, I've been making art for 20 years. I've never gotten one grant, and I'm even getting denied for mutual aid, and I don't qualify for unemployment. So it's like these people that are holding the keys and have funds and already see artists doing art. I wonder why we're holding so tightly to that grant system that is only working for some people, when there are thousands of artists right now that are maybe gonna go homeless, or, you know, just like disappear through some cracks because we don't fit in a system, but we are still here.
Love that. And like Meg said in the chat, that is just gross. It's not okay. But that resilience, and I just have a lot of thoughts around the system in that sense. And I know that we're in this moment to talk about this conversation, but I just really want to encourage others to check out Sarah's work, to support her work, and just dive in deep into what you've done for our communities, and you continue doing it. So with that,
thing about systems, not trying to go over my time. But watching my 9-year-old have to figure out at 9 how to quickly adapt to learning how to use chat and learning how to learn through the education system, but now virtually, was so intense and disruptive that it made me think about also the opportunity that we have in the education system right now to like maybe bring in some breath awareness, bring in some sound therapies, bring in like some ancient ritual or whatever we could do to help these kids, because they're going to be affected later by this quick drastic shift. And although the families in our lives are doing our best to make it seem okay for them, if we're not okay, they're not okay. And yeah, I went into my daughter's 9-year-old class and I brought in my singing bowl and we just had a couple of minutes, but it was like enough to let the teacher exhale, enough for all the kids to feel together and just like, not like go, 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 jump in it, like adapt. I think people need more time, more space.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I'm done. I have to say that.
No, I love it. I honestly could talk to you for many more hours, just as far as like we've just scratched the surface and your perspective. I know that you share a little bit on the writing piece that you did for Pollen, but I do really want to encourage everyone who's watching today to just follow and continue the conversation with your views. So yeah, I also want to sit with that because I feel like after this, we're changing as we continue to talk, as we continue to wake up every day. The world is changing, and what is normal, setting with that and knowing that we're not going to go back, and we got to learn from this and grow from it. And our children and our young kids are learning from this too, even though we feel like sometimes we're just focused on ourselves. So I will just say, yeah.
Last thing, on the bright side, we get to create what's next, and that is the bright side, is that we get to have these conversations now, and we're here. I mean, we're here for a reason, and yeah, we'll talk about this another time, but thank you.
No, I will say, Sarah, you'll be back during our Q&A session. So I'm just going to shift it over to our next speaker, but thank you again, Sarah, for your time, and we'll be sharing some links and more information about her work. So now I'm excited to bring in our next speaker. We have Laura Zabel. Just a quick bio on Laura. Laura is the Executive Director of Springboard for the Arts, an incredible organization, an economic and community development organization for artists and by artists. She is a frequent speaker on arts and community development at convenings such as the Aspen Ideas Festival, Urban Land Institute, and Americans for the Arts. She was a 2014 Bush Foundation Fellow, was named one of the 50 most influential people in the US nonprofit arts, and received the 2012 Visionary Leader Award from the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks. I'm really happy to be here and see all of your wonderful faces.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. And like I said earlier, we are starting off our questions with the question, are you okay?
Yes, I've been I think one thing I've learned over the last few weeks is that for that question especially, I have to kind of narrow down the aperture and say that in this moment and in this place, I'm okay, and the people I love are okay, and that's that means a lot. So yes, I'm okay.
Thank you. Yeah, we, like Jerome said earlier too, when we have our group chats, we're kind of like, are you okay in that moment? But at the same time, we take time to reflect as a whole and how it affects us on a day-to-day. So Laura, a question I have for you revolves around the arts, and as far as what safety nets need to be in place to better support the creative community right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a kind of horrible validation in this moment of the work that a lot of us have been trying to build for a long time, for generations, really. I think, there have been people saying that we, particularly in this country, don't value the people who make meaning with us, the people who are tradition bearers and culture bearers, the people who, help us come together, that build connection in our community, and that contribute so much. And I think now all of a sudden a lot more people are seeing that we don't have any system. There's certainly no national system that supports artists and creative makers and culture bearers in this country. And so I think we have, like Sarah was saying, there's an opportunity in this to build what's next, and to build it in the image of what we actually want, and what would actually serve people. So I think in terms of what's necessary, I think we're really seeing in this moment the limitation of treating a lot of folks, artists included, as contractors and freelance workers who don't have any protections or any recourse when things get canceled, or any runway to plan what's next. I think one of the things that we really saw here in Minnesota about 3 weeks ago, when, really within about 24 hours, the whole bottom fell out for our creative community, and people just lost months and months of work in terms of income, but also in terms of creative output. I think what's different about that than maybe some other folks in our community is that there wasn't even the one more paycheck, or the, little bit of runway towards what's next, or one more payment for your health insurance. It was just not only starting from zero, but sometimes starting in the negative, because work had already been created that went uncompensated. Labor had already gone into projects that got canceled and weren't, and that work wasn't paid for or compensated, because there's, most people's contractor contracts don't protect them in those ways. So I think there's a whole range of super practical things, like contracts, like better worker protections, like ways that we can support and cooperatively support artists, and systems of support. And then I think there's also the kind of bigger picture things that are necessary, that are more about how we each individually come to value meaning making and culture making in our lives. And I think this moment's teaching us all a lot about that, about how necessary being able to read or experience poetry or see someone dance or watch someone sing or sing together. I think there's an opportunity for us to take that new awareness and do something better with it.
Yeah, definitely. It's the time. Now it's the time. Don't look back. And we need to continue working together and sharing our experiences, and especially as artists, knowing that we're going to be moving forward and moving together with this work. So, Laura, what strategies are you using to keep up the spirit of community, even while we're keeping our physical distance?
Yeah, so most of Springboard's work in the last 3 weeks has been really focused on the emergency financial needs of artists and the urgency that the situation created. So in more typical days, Springboard runs an emergency relief fund that is a small amount of money. It's $500 for artists who've experienced career-threatening emergencies. We typically see about 2 to 4 applications in that fund every month. And 3 weeks ago, we opened it up for artists who are experiencing income loss from cancellations. And as of this morning, we have 887 applications in that fund. So a lot of our focus has been on trying to raise money. I'm super proud of the team at Springboard. They've gotten $192,000 out the door in $500 increments in the last 3 weeks to about 400 artists. The only requirements for that fund are that you have to be an artist in Minnesota. We wish it could be national, but right now it's for artists in Minnesota. And then within the applications, we prioritize artists who identify as Black, Indigenous, Native, people of color, artists from rural places, artists from the disability community, and GLBTQIA artists. So those artists are prioritized, but the fund is open to everybody. So that's one way. I think I don't want us to mistake this moment that part of how we care for our community, a part of how we care for the folks we love and value has to be financial in this moment, and particularly for artists. So that's part of the thing. It's hard to engage in keeping your spirits up if you can't pay your rent or can't put food on the table. And then, I am just seeing artists step to this moment and bring their creativity to this moment in such beautiful ways, you know, in ways that are big and small, and ways that are really meaningful in a lot of to a lot of different people. So one example that I think is different than what maybe moves a lot of other people, but my my background as an artist is as a theater maker, and I come from sketch comedy, and I have a good friend, Eric Webster, who's from my comedy world, and he's been doing this week his version of like morning school announcements with a little toy microphone so that you can tune in and sort of start your day with the over-the-air announcement as if you were in high school. And they're quite delightful and funny. And I think, you know, it's just a very small way. That's an example that's not about an artist like, you know, bending over backwards and trying to move their work online and do everything in a new way, but just sort of him bringing his creativity this moment and saying, this is what I have to offer, and this is, I can provide this moment of levity in my community. Yeah. And I think those small things are the things that have been the most meaningful to me. And there are some opportunities within that too. You know, I've gotten to see people perform in other cities that I wouldn't have gotten to see perform in the last couple of weeks. So there's some opportunity there, and I'll just, since this has sort of been the theme, I just want to re-emphasize that part of this collective experience we're having. When you see those moments, those things that resonate with you, pay those artists.
Yeah, so true. I just wanted to add on to that because of paying for your artists. Last week, someone had reached out to me about their family member was having a birthday on Saturday, and they actually felt like they didn't want to go to Target and purchase another generic card. And they just thought like, hey, do you have anyone that you recommend that could put together a birthday card for my son? I know it might be a tight turnaround, which is something to take into consideration and really respect artists and their time, but they were like, I am willing to pay this much, and I'm willing to just make it work with them. Who do you recommend? So I think the way that we are used to just sourcing out things like going to big retail stores and purchasing that kind of thing, how can we look into our own network and communities? And Instagram is a great help if you follow artists, you know, if they are doing different things. I know some caricature artists are doing, you know, caricatures for a certain amount, and that helps pay for groceries and makes a difference. Also thinking about photography, I know that industry is also being affected, but, you know, people are taking photos of family members, or they're engaged by keeping 6 feet apart or from a window. So it's very interesting to see how we're adapting with the times and what's happening. And one thing to note that stood out to me about what you said is, this is what I have to offer. So I believe it was Trisha Hearing who took to Instagram the other day and just said, you know, talking to artists, when we found out about all of this with COVID and what we had to do, it was very reactionary. So some artists just decided to create. And now we're looking back, and some artists have expressed to me like, I'm tired. I don't really have the energy to continue producing. And so I'm going to have to step back for a little bit and take care of myself. Just because they really went hard at the first time, but now, like Sarah said, it's all connected within ourselves. We are grounding ourselves, but at the same time, how are we caring for each other? So keeping in mind that the takeaway of, this is what I have to offer at the moment. I might not be the loudest person in the room, but I am watching, I am taking, and at the same time, I will be producing and supporting. So that's just great stuff that you shared with us today, Laura. I really appreciate it. I know that Julie shared with us the link towards the Springboard for the Arts Act that you're all putting together. Carl's video was shared on Facebook, and he did some numbers, and I thought that was very engaging too, of the support for the artists. So we'll be sharing those links later on today. And also, is there anything you would like to add?
There's a big, you know, in addition to the fundraiser for the Emergency Relief Fund, there are a lot of other resources on Springboard's website, other emergency funds, both locally and nationally, and other kinds of resources and help. We have an incredible group of about 25 practicing artists who also do one-on-one consultations and coaching appointments with artists, so you can sign up for those through the website. I guess one other silver lining that I have in this moment is, you know, there aren't a lot of other organizations nationally that focus on individual artists, and in this moment, we've seen organizations and individuals all across the country start emergency relief funds to support their creative community. And last Friday, we hosted a call for about 75 people across the country and Canada too that are running emergency relief funds. And there's something in that network, in the same way that you're making the space for to connect to each other. That moment last Friday was really hopeful for me, because it makes me feel like that's potentially a network that could last beyond this, and maybe work our way towards what a more equitable, fair system looks like for artists.
That's for sure. Thank you for sharing, Laura. We will be back during the Q&A session. But right now I'm going to shift over our conversation to our last speaker. Very excited to present Ryan Stopera and his bio. He is a photographer, a filmmaker, an educator based in Minneapolis. Ryan is motivated by creating space for connection and collaboration so we can make change and shift power in our communities. Welcome, Ryan.
Hello, how's everyone?
Hi. Good, good, good. And I ask you, Ryan, the question of our theme today is, are you okay?
Similar to everyone in this moment, yeah, I'm okay. Been doing some editing work on a short film. I had a call with my mom, who I haven't seen in like 3 weeks. So it was good to check in with her before this. And yeah, today in this moment, I'm okay.
Thank you for sharing. And you kind of talked a little bit like just you're always doing stuff, meeting together with people in the communities and just putting great ideas together. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more of how have you and your co-directors at Free Truth Media adapted your business to meet the needs and constraints of the public health, economic, and connection crisis? And even before we dive into the question, if you want to share a little bit more about what Free Truth Media does and is adapting to do.
Yeah. So myself and Aja Gildersleeve are co-directors of Free Truth, a media company using art as a tool for liberation. So Aja is an organizer, one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter in Minneapolis, and I come from a social work and community organizing background. So really, we, again, use art as a tool for liberation. We use photography, videography, film, and events to disrupt and create change. And so as most freelancers and small businesses, when this all went down, we lost a ton of work. But instead of just like throwing our hands up, we said, you know, what are we going to do? We have to pivot. So we started organizing a database of freelancers, designers, illustrators, and then looking into, you know, how do we do the same work? We need to tell stories. We need to support organizations, and we can still do so without physically filming or filming interviews. So looking at more animated work, looking at more infographic and data-driven videos. So yeah, so we had a really hard hit initially, but now there's more work coming up. I'm working with Aaron Murphy and Our Stories, Our Health to support getting more supplies for healthcare workers. Working with the Lake Street Council on supporting small businesses during this time on Lake Street, especially immigrant-owned businesses. They're getting hit hard. And we can do all this by adapting our work and supporting, spreading that to other freelancers who lost a lot of work.
It's real. And I think I just have to highlight throughout this conversation with you and Sarah and Laura, just the fact that, you know, one thing is to know, like, find out about the uncertainty of our future and what's happening in our communities with the pandemic, but the way that you all have acted towards this, you know, Sarah having those contracts canceled and then just being like, okay, what am I going to do? And going out there and continue to do the work, like writing that piece for Pollen, and then Ryan with your approach with the community and rethinking your business, and then Laura with your organization and bringing people together. I think it's just so inspiring, motivating, but at the same time knowing that you all are doing incredible work and it needs to go, it can't go unnoticed. So just want to call that out there and thank you so much for what you're doing. Ryan, you talked a little bit about, connecting with others, but I would love to hear more in detail as far as like, how are you helping those around you, even though you might not be even though you might be physically distant just because of what we're living at this moment. Is there like a process that you do every day, or something that you found healing throughout all of this that you share with others in the creative field and also personal?
Yeah, I mean, so I mentioned my mom. She's a widow and she lives alone. And just to be safe, we haven't seen each other, so check in with her quite a bit over the phone and FaceTime. And then we have family in Taiwan, and we sent masks to them early because they couldn't get them. And then Taiwan has now really gotten through this in a safe way so far. So just staying connected with family abroad. Um, I've been spending a lot of time with my partner Leslie. We share a studio, so we're doing work there. We're actually going to make masks there this weekend, and just trying to create art and spread joy. My friend Sarita, who you all know, and Nolan Maurice, we're going to do like a live visual DJ set and put that out.
Yeah.
Share with folks, just finding time to grind and hustle and pay our bills, and then find time for joy and creativity within all this. Trying to write more, exercise, read, and just see what people need around me and do what I can.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. And if anyone is interested in also revisiting the conversations that we've been having for the past 2 weeks, I know that we've been recording them. Sarita was featured in the first one, and she just had some incredible takeaway pieces. So make sure to look for those previous conversations. So Ryan, those were my questions for you. Is there anything else you would like to add before we shift over to Q&A portion?
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on what everyone said, and thank you. Just everything that everyone shared has been profound. And I've always thought a lot about space. And I think while we're in this really deeply traumatic event, I want us to continue to think about what comes next. What are we building, especially around space? I fear that we will be pushed to consider cuts to the arts as necessary austerity measures, when that we know that's a lie, that the arts are essential to our culture. And so how are we rebuilding when we see spaces go vacant and we start to rebuild those spaces? How are we disrupting and organizing against who owns and operates those spaces, and the whole our cities don't become strip malls by big chains. So just continuing that conversation, organizing around space and ownership in the arts.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So let's see. I think we're handing it off to the Q&A portion here, and Julie has been sending over. I think our first question is Laura. So I have a question for you. Says you're currently working on building a network for support the artist community, and what are the other stakeholders you are thinking of involving in the process?
I mean, a thing that we've been working on for a while that a lot of other folks are working on as well, that I think is particularly clear in this moment, is that as artists, as creative practitioners, we need to be in solidarity with other labor movements, with other movements that support freelancers and independent workers, and that in a lot of ways, those are stronger allies for us than sometimes the large cultural institutions in our communities. That the challenges that artists are dealing with right now are really familiar to a lot of other folks, and there are people who are doing really great organizing around that. I think a really practical example of that is the organizing that's happened just in the last 3 weeks to include independent workers and freelancers in unemployment at the state and federal level. That's a big policy win. I think I still have some probably unfortunately well-founded skepticism that that will work for everyone. There will definitely still be artists who fall through those cracks, and there are a lot of challenges that artists and other freelancers face in documenting income and stuff like that that are required for those kind of big bureaucratic systems. But I think that they are at least considered, or that those words are at least on the pages of our state and federal leaders in this moment, I think is important. So that's one thing. I think, you know, this network of folks that's really emergent, of people who are doing emergency relief across the country for all kinds of different communities, for farm workers, for artists, for, you know, Uber drivers, and other kind of folks who work in, you know, who don't have salaried jobs. I think there's a lot of power in that network, and I think it's early days, but that's where I'm finding my most the most optimism in what might be possible in terms of a movement that comes out of this.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing. I have a question for Sarah. So Sarah, this crisis brought out a giant wave of panic and fear for me. It has reconfirmed on a global scale that disabled bodies are expendable. What are your thoughts and advice as an artist and healer through this? How can we honor our bodies and spirits and humanize ourselves right now?
That's huge. I mean, that's honestly, it's really challenging to be somebody who understands body systems, holds body systems, and also process what's coming up. And I think the first thing to do is just know you don't need to be any way. You don't have to like work out and come out of this with the bomb body. You don't have to get anything done. Like right now, we don't have anything that we need to be better at or do quicker. And like take a little space for yourself, have empathy for yourself. Understand that it is super extreme to process the fact that some of our bodies are still disposable and not taken care of. And that is a huge thing to hold on to. So like find a second to just breathe. I've been practicing a lot with sound, putting my feet on the ground and just allowing myself to feel everything, even if that means I'm sobbing, I'm binge watching, I'm eating cookies, I'm pleasing myself, like whatever needs to happen so I feel like I can live in my body. Carve out that space for yourself. You deserve it. And don't let the machine that's forcing us to feel like we have to keep moving forward and processing, don't let that push you forward. Come back, you know, check in with friends.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have a lot of thoughts around that as far as like the process goes. You know, we went from having our normal day and then shifting over into this, wait, we can't go outside, we can't do our routine. So I love that grounding, that holding. So yeah, if you do one of those sessions or webinars or something, I'm signing up just to like hear more about your process and the sound too. I think it's very important, especially some of us who live by ourselves, right? Like you don't listen to a lot aside from the news, and that's stressful. So I think there's a lot of growth and potential there too. So, well, I will be handing the conversation over to Jerome. I just want to take a moment to say gracias to all of you for joining us today in the audience, and to our speakers. You are all incredible. The work that you are doing, supporting our communities, and being here today with Pollen just means the world. So I really appreciate you all, and excited to see where we go from here, but we're in this together, and make sure to reach out to our freelancers and artists, because we're out there and doing the work. So thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Ryan, Sarah, Laura, Eyenga. Really appreciate all that you shared today. And I know that I really needed that. And hopefully you guys out there, you folks were able to get some words of wisdom too. Stay tuned for just a couple more minutes until the end here, because I've got some announcements to share, some housekeeping stuff. But first, at the end of each one of these gatherings, we want to highlight an important initiative that's stepping up to the COVID-19 crisis. So normally, Pollen events cost about $30, $35 for a ticket, but these gatherings are free and will continue to be free. So In lieu of a ticket price, we ask that you consider a donation in any size. We're asking our pollen community to support today's featured artists in whatever way you're able to. We've got links that have been shared in the chat. We'll share them on social media. There'll be a follow-up email you receive after today's event with some resources and also some more links and ways that you can support the folks we've heard from today. And now I want to introduce Mari Cedar-James from Minnesota Central Kitchen, who's going to share a few words about their efforts to feed families during this crisis. Mari, are you with us?
Yeah, I am. Hi, Jerome. Thank
Hello,
you.
hello.
Hi, everybody. So great to be here with you all and see so many faces that I know. Really a fun surprise, and I have never been on the Zoom with so many people, so I'm learning and enjoying. Thanks for letting me take just a moment. I want you all to know what we're working on here at Cowgirls is a movement in partnership with Second Harvest Heartland and Loaves and Fishes to produce prepared meals for anyone who needs them. At this point, Loaves and Fishes is the distributor of these meals, but I got a really exciting invitation this morning to be a part of a larger initiative that is being discussed at the kind of state level, from the governor's office to the mayors of Minneapolis and St. Paul, to scale up this project. So at this point, we've been able to produce about 15,000 meals in the last 14 days that have been prepared entirely by donated surplus food. And so that started with the restaurant closures 2 weeks ago. And now we're moving into larger donations that are coming from disruptions in the food supply when those restaurants are closing and other outlets for those larger donations are not available, which is incredible. That's like 35,000 pounds of chicken, 3,500 pounds of green beans, things like that. We think that those types of donations are going to last a few more weeks. So I think the most important message at the moment is that there is a lot of work to be done. Food is one of our most basic human needs, right? We know, and that this food is available to anybody. And so what I want to do with you as a group is, this is an incredible group. This force and energy that we have and that Pollen has created around gathering people like us over the last few years is a formidable force. I think that what I need from you is details about how, when we can mobilize this larger scale food resource, that we are meeting people at their tables with food that is culturally relevant and sustaining for them. So that means the food is healthy. It means that it's made from scratch. And it means that it's recognizable to all people that we are able to serve in Minnesota. And that means, how do we get food to people who are not mobile, they're not connected technologically or financially or geographically, or foods that are comforting to them may not be foods that are comforting to me. So we've been put here to make, creating something new out of this incredible situation that we did not foresee, as we watched the fragility of our financial system, our food system, our work systems crumble in a matter of days. We also have the opportunity to build something new out of this, and that means to me that we build a new food system that is equitable in both a physical food way and a financial way, and that ownership of this fragile food and financial system is transferred to the majority of the people. How can we build something like that that's accessible to all? So thanks for listening. Please be in touch with me. Jerome will get in touch so we can share all of the relevant information. We are looking for skilled food workers to volunteer. We are looking for additional outlets for prepared food eventually, distribution assistance, and then we're really talking about going on a grand scale. I have big dreams of, you know, utilizing the stadium somehow, utilizing food trucks all over the Twin Cities, getting out into the rural areas by utilizing our partners in you know, non-governmental type areas, churches, community centers. So let your imagination run wild, and please get at me with ideas that you have, and reminders of the things that we need to remember when we plan large-scale resources like these.
Thank you so much, Mari. And folks, if you're able and willing, please donate cash or food to Minnesota Central Kitchen, to our artists who are featured on the call today. If you've got anything left over, maybe to pollen, who knows, or all of the above, whatever it takes. One more call to action and a couple more things. We got about 60 seconds left. If you have the capability, please reach out to 2 or 3 people, set up a video chat with them, coworkers, family, friends, neighbors, anyone you want to connect with. Ask these questions as a way to start your conversation. You can use the hashtag RUOKMN if you want to share some of the outcomes of those conversations. After today, we're going to be sending a follow-up email with resources and links that will include the recording of the gathering that just happened, which you can share with others. We'll be back next Thursday at 2 p.m. Central for our next gathering. If you haven't yet, please go to pollenmidwest.org and read Sarah White's recently published piece. It's beautiful. It's lovely. You should read it. And last but not least, stay healthy and stay connected. And thank you for joining. See you next week.